Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those of you out west. Today, we will be covering the tips and tricks. So we won't be covering one particular section, but we will go over most of the different sections and discover little functionalities or way to go about to help you use SAP and save time. The the webinar will last between 45 minutes and 60 minutes, a little bit longer than usually.
Yeah, usually they last about half an hour because that's why we call these coffee breaks, because people can't take the afternoon off for training. But today we're going a little over because he's going to be covering basic tips on a series of different things. So a bit of sales, a bit of finance, so it is a bit longer. So if anybody has to log out because we're going over on our half hour, send me an email at tracy@forgestic.com and I can send you the recording of this. All right. So, all right, it's sorry, Christophe.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Okay, so what actually when I got myself prepared for that webinar, I used that blog that comes from SAP, and I will show you what it looks like. And actually, Tracy is going to send you the link for that.
Yeah,
It's a
there's a
very
lot of help in here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very interesting blog. It is updated, I would say, almost every week. And every time we see little tips here that we don't see sometimes in the what's new, or we don't see in the documentation, or when we see it, it's long time after. I was able to see some new features that came up in 9.3 PL5, PL5 and PL6. So long time after the first batch release. And as you can see, it is very, it's a one pager, basically. It's a few lines, 1, 2 screenshot maximum, really easy to search what you're looking for, really easy to read. So if you have time, you can go and have a look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Christophe's going to be sending me this. He's going to send me a copy of his PowerPoint. And like I said, I record the session. So if anybody wants a copy afterwards, I'll send you both so you'll have access to the blog. And Ari, the guy that gives this, he has a lot of really interesting information that you can go through. So I'll have it on hand if needed.
Good. Okay, so we have a lot to see today. First, we will be seeing the cockpit and the search bar in HANA. So those first two topics will be only for HANA, but then everything that we're going to see will be for SQL as well as for HANA. So we will be looking at the tooltips, my personal settings, and how we can quickly create a new user in SAP and make sure that they are able to work quickly because they have all the proper user settings and the authorizations. We'll be looking at the new options in chart of account, some sort and filter tips, and then we will look at a few little tricks that we can use in a sales order, delivery, AR, invoice, sending by email, and verifying who the email was sent to. We will look at the relationship backorder report and a few very new features from PL5, PL6 version 9.3.
Yeah, so this covers a lot of different things. So some people today are just in sales, some do production, but we're really covering tips and tricks on the whole batch. That's why we're going over a bit longer than usual today.
Right, so hopefully you like it. Let's go now in SAP. So this is a version 9.3 PL06.
Yeah, and this is HANA, by the way, because again, a lot of customers are on the SQL version of SAP, so his look is a bit different than yours, maybe, but it's the same thing. You've got your menu on the extreme left, but he has dashboards that others might not have. So, but it's going to be the same thing you'll see later.
Exactly, the skin might be a little bit different. So first, what you notice that we have a cockpit, and in a few minutes I was able to create my own cockpit. I had to choose among a lot of features. What I picked up was the top 5 best selling per customer and also per items. But what I have very interesting here, I have my recent update section. So what we can see here is that I've made a modification on that GL account, and I've made a modification on that customer. I did also a creation of an AR invoice and a sales order. So whatever is modified or created, if we, for some reason, we need to get back very soon to that, we can find it in my recent updates. We've got the alerts here, messages and alerts that have their own sections. And also, if I am someone that will use the sales process very often, I can add it on my dashboards so I can access very quickly the sales order here instead of going to the menu or instead of using the SAP shortcut.
Yeah, that's right. It's personalized dashboards. So if no matter what your tasks are when you're in HANA, you can add all of these different, you can make up your own dashboards. It's really interesting.
Exactly. It could be like I'm having a sales process and financial, but it could be also the inventory, the
Production,
purchasing.
shipping.
Exactly. So we have a direct access here on the AR invoice, but we have also that little triangle that provides some more options like the open item list, document generation wizard, and so on. So that is the cockpit. Now we have a search tool here that is really cool. If I'm looking for a master data, it could be a customer, it could be an item. Let's say here, I'm looking for a tablet. I will see very quickly what is related to what I'm searching for. So I can find 3 items that contain the name tablet in it. I can find some AP invoice and I can drill down, do a search by BP name, let's say, or by contact. I could go down and filter per posting date, let's say. So I can see what was bought, what was sold about this. I could do a search on any document number, or here I did an AR invoice for webinar this morning. And if I just enter the reference, I will find it here, the AP invoice. Then I can do a drill down on it and look what I'm looking for. So that is a very great feature that we have, by the way, in SQL, but we have more access to more research types and more information in HANA. Also, we have the lookup menu here on the left. So let's say if you guys need to open a sales order, let's say, you know where it is. It's always at the same place. But if you need to access the tax, or if you need to create a new rep, or if you're looking for something that you don't know where it is, you can just enter a few letters here and it will search for you.
And that's specific to HANA and not the SQL. But when somebody's looking for tax stuff, just as an example, if they type it in, because on the SQL version at the top right in the lookup research bar, we have it there in the SQL, like I'm on at the SQL version. Would I have that as well there?
So that lookup here, you will have it in SQL. You will have to choose between documents or master data, but it won't be as complete as it is now.
And on your HANA version, okay.
Exactly, but still I would encourage you to try it on your SQL version.
Okay.
And that filter here on the left, you don't have it. Let's say if I'm looking for the backorder report here, you won't be able to use that in SQL.
No, we just use the menu.
That's correct.
Look.
So okay, so that's it for now for HANA. What we're gonna see from now, you can have it exactly the same in SQL and in HANA. So the next topic I would like to show you is what we call the tooltip preview. It is that little window that will open when you put the cursor over an arrow. So let's say I want to have some information about the customer. I could do a drill down here and look for the information, but I can also find it here in that little window, and that window is customizable. I could decide what are the key fields that I'm looking for, and we can also include some user-defined fields on it. So every time that I'm seeing that drill down arrow,
The
I
golden
can,
arrow.
the golden arrow, exactly, I can put a cursor on it. So that is simply called the tooltips, and it is there. Under system initialization, tooltip preview, you just enable it and you decide to which section it will be activated, it will be enabled. So that's an interesting feature. Now, my personal settings. So that is new as of 9.3. Very interesting for anyone that want to change quickly the language or the font size in his SAP only. It doesn't change anything for the other people. Now, what I found interesting this week is I had a customer that for some reason he needed to have a big font, a 14, but then the buttons on the bottom would not appear in the main window. We will have to drill down from up to down to see it. And we find out that by just changing the font to an Arial, if I remember well, then it was clear enough to see it, but it would fit into one page. So that can be interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm seeing that my connection could be weak. Can you hear me well, guys?
I can, Christophe, and that's another thing that I forgot to tell everybody with all this snow and the weather that we've been having. We had a few connection problems this morning, so if ever anything happens and we lose Christophe, we're going to take this up again and record it and send you the copies, but it's just a pre-warn here.
Yeah. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so yeah, my personal settings is very interesting for that reason. Also, when you have a new employee, you want to create quickly a new user in SAP, you can use in 9.3 what we call the user group. So I'm just going to search in here, and so you can associate this new SAP user to an authorization group. Let's say this person will be part of the customer service team. So you don't have to redo the authorization for this person. You just link it to that group and it's going to be done. But you can also link it to an alert group. He's going to receive the same alerts as the other person. And also, we lose a lot of time to configure form settings for a new user. If we use the form settings group, he's going to have exactly the same form settings as everyone else. We could also link that person to a UI configuration template. So UI being a user interface. And we use the user interface in SAP, well, to have the proper form settings for someone, but also if we want to hide some tabs, hide some fields, or move some UDFs over to the main window, for instance. This is one of the reasons why we could use the UI configuration template. So now in 9.3, it's really quick to create a new user and to have him up and running in SAP. Now, chart of account. If you've seen the What's New 9.3, you know that the chart of account now have those collapse menu here. We can quickly see what we're looking for. If sorry, I'm gonna go here. Okay. For some reason, I can't change my level. Usually, okay, probably because I was not in the right place. So now we can see quickly what belongs to the level 3, the titles, or what belongs to the level 4, which are the active GL account. We can also close this if we want to see only a certain level. What we can do also now, we can quickly change the drawer name here. We could do that before in 9.2 and previously versions,
Oh, that's it,
but
the different drawers
we
that they have under each one.
exactly. So now it makes it easier to change the name of a drawer. Okay, and we have SAP has made 10 drawers now because it was like this in some other countries, and they wanted to make it standard for every SAP version. Okay, so just a little trick about the chart account. Now, we have the option in when we create a journal entry, we have the option of having the remark mandatory. It is a setup under the document settings. Oh, document settings. Let's go get the journal entry. Okay, there it is. Okay, so we can just create a warning for the user or simply block the transaction if there is no remark, and it can be for the header or for the row or for both. So to help us enter some remark, we can also use the template. I'm gonna exit that, and let's say in the cash on hand, I want to create a template. So I will go into the account detail, and here right now I have one which is called bank, but I could also create a new one and just associate that GL account to that template. And what happens when I create a journal entry? It will insert automatically the remark template, but I could also change it if I need to. So it can be useful for reporting purpose, for instance. Now, in the query manager, we all use that query manager. And sometimes after a few years, we can have many remarks. Sorry, not remarks, but many queries. So now in 9.3, we have that new filter bar. And if I want to search for the open service calls, let's say I will just enter open, and it will filter on anything that contains open. So we have a few customers that have hundreds and sometimes even 1,000 queries. It can be very useful to use that new filter here.
And this filter is available in SQL as well as HANA, you said, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is, yeah. Okay. Talking about filters, you know that filter here and that sort. So I won't talk about it much, just to remind you that if you have a lot of information here, let's say I have a few hundreds customers and I want to look for a given customer. I could use that find here, but I could only use that filter table. And let's say I want to filter on the customers that have the property one equal no or yes only. And if I'm missing some of the fields that I want to filter on, I can just add them in the form settings here. It could be, let's say that I want to have the remark. I'll just update, close the window and reopen it because I need to refresh it. And then I will be able to filter on that field. Okay, so we can filter, we can sort. It's very useful before we can export to Excel. Okay, so now let's go to a sales order. A few things I wanted to show you in the sales order. First, the attachment. We've had the attachment for a long time. Now we have that new field, which is called free text. If we link a sales order to an email, a PDF for specification, a contract, a PDF for contract, or anything else, we might want to add some more information here. So I'm just going to write down that it is a specification, let's say, and update.
There could be a copy of the signed quote or the signed contract, or whether beforehand we didn't have the free text, it was just the attachment that would show up.
Exactly, exactly. Also, sometimes we have a customer over the line, and of course the price is going to come up automatically, but we want to know why. Like maybe the customer wants to know why the price is that price. So it could be linked to a price list, it could be linked to a special price or period and volume discount. We have that price source field here that will tell us quickly why we have this price. Okay, so by default it doesn't. Oh, sorry. By default it doesn't come up, so you can just add it in the form settings. Here it is called price source. You just check it as visible and you put it where you want, and it's going to tell you if it's a special price for a business partner and so on. So price source fields. Also, if the customer wants to know what were the last prices that this item was sold to him, you can do a right click in the unit price and select the last price report, which is, okay, there it is, last prices. So for this customer and for this item, we have a history of the dates, the quantity, and the price that we sold to this customer. We have also some information about the document. Was it a sales order, an invoice, a delivery note, and so on.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody, for anybody who wants more information on price lists and anything that's price related, we have quite a few different web sessions that we already covered just on pricing and price lists. So if anybody wants to dig into that, just send me an email and I can share the webinar with you.
Okay. Also, sometimes it is possible that we don't have enough stock. If we do a right click in the quantity field, we have the option of the available to promise. And it's going to specify for this item, for this warehouse, like what are the committed quantities. So what are the quantities that are linked to a sales order, and what are the ordered quantity linked to a purchase order. And we're going to have the delivery dates for those POs. So we can tell the customer that we are going to have some more in a week, let's say. Okay, now, when we go to a creation mode, we often have to enter some dates. It could be in the creation of a sales order, it could be because of some filters in the aging or whatever the report is. We know that we can enter any letter. Like I'm putting a P and it's going to enter today's date. It's that simple. But if I want to have the delivery date in 5 days, I'm just going to put +5 and do a tab. Okay. So it's going to be the 20th. If I want to change just a day at a time, I'm going to use the up and down arrow of my keyboard just to move it down or move it up. Okay, so these are new features to enter the date. So far, so good?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free. You know, Christophe is here for that. I've got the chat section too if anybody wants to just write a question in there.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. That has been a long time. I think since version 9.1 or 9.2 that we have this, but still, just so that you remember, it is possible when we create a goods return, or credit memo linked to a sales order. Under some circumstance, we might want to reopen the original sales order. We can do that by enabling this feature here in the document settings. So, and if we don't check that without user, then SAP will ask us if we want to reopen the original sales order. So it can be interesting if we've made a mistake, the invoice that we've created was not correct, there was an error somewhere, we just created it, and it will ask us if we want to reopen the sales order. Also, when we do a return, if the return is copied from a delivery, or if the credit memo is copied from an invoice, the cost that was in the delivery or in the invoice will be the cost used by SAP for the credit memo. But if we do a return that is not based on any sales order, let's say, we have that option to enter the cost in the return. So it's still in the document settings in the return section. So you might want to be careful to who is allowed to do that. But in a creation mode, you would simply enable that field. You would just check it, and it will allow you to enter a return cost. Okay. Now, about the pricing, we have another option here. In the general settings, in the pricing tab, we have an option to display a zero price in document if the price source is based on an inactive price list. Okay, so we can check those three options here. And what happens is sometimes we can have some price lists that are finishing in the end of year, let's say, and the year after we create a new price list. In that situation, they will have a valid from and a valid to date. So if a customer is linked to a price list that is not valid anymore, we don't want the price to come up on a sales order. We might want to have a zero price. So that is the option to create that. Okay. Now, more and more, we are sending order confirmation and invoice by email. We can use that SAP Business One mailer here. We can also use the send by Outlook here. Usually people will use the Outlook because it offers a greater traceability and more options. So when we send a document, when we do print a document, or when we do send a document by email, SAP knows it. It keeps a record in the database. And we can here verify in the email report under the business partner. We can verify here which sales order were sent or which invoices were sent by email. Okay, and we can also send them by batch, just like we would do for with a regular print. It is here under Sales AR, and it's called document printing. So I'm sure you guys know that document printing. We could print the AR invoice once a day in the end of day, but now we could also decide to email it. And we used to have only the documents still to be printed. Now we have the only documents yet to be emailed and open only. So that is a great tool if we want to print less. Okay, another report that is interesting is the backorder. So we've had that backorder report for a long time, but I think it's been improved recently. So what it does is it will show us per document and per line what are the backorders. So here I will sort by document number. I can see that for that specific item, we had original order of 4, but we have delivered only 3. So we have that back order here. The original delivery date was here, and so we could call the customer, say, do you still want it? We could change the delivery date, or if the customer says no, thank you, I will just order it in a new sales order, then we can just select the line, do a right click, and close the row. And SAP will tell me that closing this row is irreversible. I will just say yes, and I'm having an error message here.
ODBC.
Which is I don't know.
Field cannot be updated. ODBC message.
Yeah.
Something's not clicked off.
It's supposed to work. I think
Yeah.
it does work sometimes.
It does.
When when we do a demo, it just happens. I don't
There
know.
you
There
go.
must be something. There must be something about that document. Maybe the customer is inactive. I don't know. There must be a reason. But it does work well usually. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't work for you, let us know.
You call the support desk.
We will sort this out. Okay, so that was the backorder report. And it's very interesting to clean up any old sales order, any old purchase order, because it does have an impact on what your people see here on the inventory. Okay, it does have an impact on what is committed or what is ordered. Okay.
Does
Now,
anybody have any questions so far on this, on the back orders, or all right? Okay.
good. Okay, I would like to show you something about the incoming payment. Incoming payment. And before we look at it, I would like to show you, just to remind you that we have the relationship map, which is a great tool because sometimes we could have one sales order that we have 2 or 3 deliveries, we could have 2 invoices, we could have a credit memo, an incoming payment, 2 invoices. Sometimes it can be really hard to understand what happened to a sales order. So we do a right click on the document, relationship map, and here we have a very, very easy example. But what I wanted to show you is that we have this padlock here. If it was open, it would mean that, let's say, the sales order, we still have one line that is to be delivered, maybe a quantity that is to be delivered. So we might want to check if there is some, if the padlock is open, then there is something to look at. And also here, you see the money bag with that green check, means that it's been paid. And you can see the legend here. It says that it's been paid. If it was not paid, you wouldn't see that the money bag. You would see a red bar here underneath. So relationship map, always very useful to see what happened to a document. Okay, now we are in an AR invoice that has been paid, and we can see that it's closed here, and we've seen the incoming payment in the relationship map. Now, for some reasons, it could happen that we need to issue a credit memo for that invoice. It's kind of a bit late because it's been like the check was received, it's been reconciled in the bank statement. So now there's that new option since 9.3 PL05, I believe. That new option is that we can do a right click in the paid invoice, and we do a change document status to open. So I don't know if you've seen the status change to open here. So far, I haven't done anything because I didn't click update. But when I click update, I have the confirmation that that invoice is now open. But it is open under a specific status that will not be part of a customer statement. It will not be part of an aging. The only reason why it is open now is because we can copy it to a credit memo. It's that simple. And then we could issue a check for that credit memo. We could reconcile it with an invoice, let's say. Okay, so very interesting feature. We'll just create that credit memo. Okay, so that the storage location is just a normal validation because it's a warehouse management. It's a warehouse management database. So I have some validation. I need to enter the location if I do anything about the inventory. So sorry about that, but I'm sure you understand the logic behind. Okay, another interesting feature is what we call the use ship good account. We've had this since 9.2 PL05. So for a given customer,
What's it called, Christophe? The used shipment account?
use
Okay.
shipped goods account. I
Okay.
think we have it. Yeah, we have it for this customer here. So what it does is um, sometimes there can be a lot of time between the delivery and the invoice. So let's say in the end of January, we create a delivery in the system. By creating a delivery, it will credit the inventory, debit the ships, debit the cost of goods sold. So for the month of January, we have a high amount in the cost of goods sold, but we have no revenue that is linked to it. Then in February, we will issue the invoice. We will have the revenue, and we will have also the account balance linked to the customer. So we're going to have a mismatch in the financial statement. If we want to avoid that, we can use the use ship good account, and what it will do is there is that new field here in the GL account determination, and it's right there under inventory. It's called ship goods account. And what happens is when we do the delivery, it will credit the inventory account, of course, but it will debit the ship goods account this time. And a week or a few weeks or a few days after, when we do the invoice, it will credit that ship good account. So it's really a temporary GL account. It will debit the cost of goods sold and also credit the revenue and debit the account balance for the customer. So it's an in-between step that will allow us to have always the revenue and the cost of goods sold in the same posting period. So good feature to know. Okay, two small things that I wanted to show you. The first one is for AR invoice. If we are in an AR invoice that is open, we want to pay it, we could go into the incoming payment, select that customer, select that invoice, and enter how it was paid. But if we are in the AR invoice, we can simply click on the payment means here, or we could use the Control Y shortcut, and it will open the incoming payment for that customer. It will select the document here and open the payment means window. So if by any chance we are in that invoice, it's we save a few clicks. Okay, and finally, I wanted to show you something about the situation where we can have a customer and a vendor at the same time. So let's say that this customer, Maxitech, is also a vendor, and well, it has the admin name, but let's say that the V1000 is Maxitech. So what we're going to do is in the customer file, we will link Maxitech to this vendor here, simply. And when we run an aging here, business partner reports aging, customer receivable aging. Okay. Okay, let's say we want to do it as of today. we'll just enter OK on that. So we are filtering on MaxiTech only. And we have one invoice for $101, which is exactly what we have here in the account balance. But if we want to specify that we want to consider the connected vendor, then we will see two more AP invoice here and here, which are the two invoice of the vendor V1000, which is Acme. So from here, we can do a reconciliation between the AR and the AP. So it can be a great tool. I think it happens sometimes to have a customer that is also a vendor. So that concludes the presentation. Do you have any questions?
Nobody has any questions? If anybody wants a copy of this, send me an email, okay, at tracy@forgestic.com. And again, next week, thanks a lot, Christophe. And next week, so we're going to be having our webinar on user-defined fields and user-defined objects. So I'll be sending the emails out in midweek. So thanks, everybody. And there's our number if you need anything. So thanks, Christophe.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice weekend.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.